And we're on. Welcome back to the Dad's Beer Club podcast. And my second journey to Australia this week. Jayden, how are you?
Yeah, good mate. How you going?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, I was had a guy on what day are we on? Saturday. I lose track of days at the minute. Thursday. I had a guy on who was from the West Coast.
Oh yeah, nice. WA. Yep.
So, well, I should point out he lives in the West Coast. He's actually from Wales, but he's
Right.
he's lived out there for 8 years.
No accent though.
No, weird. So he's got a Welsh accent, and there's some words he says that are very Australian. So I think being there for 8 years, he's managed to pick up some of the twang.
Yeah,
but the Welsh accent's quite a strong one anyway. So try to shift the Welsh accent is I imagine quite difficult.
Yeah, just a terrible situation there.
Yeah. Well, Jayden, one of the first things we always do on Dad's Beer Club is usually check what we're drinking for the evening. But seeing as though it's 9 a.m. for me, I'm on a cup of tea.
That's fine, mate. I stick to water only, so we're good.
Yeah, there's a saying here in England where, the British culture, we like to have a drink, we like to have a beer, and if we're going to the football and it's like an afternoon game, we'll be at the pub as soon as it opens, 9-10 o'clock, and there's always that. There's a saying where you'll have a pint 9 a.m. and you'll be like, oh, it's 9 o'clock somewhere in the world.
It's always beer o'clock somewhere in the world, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I had a couple last night with charity tournament that I was talking about, and I thought, nah, I can't do it today.
All good, no judgment. Yeah. No, I've been sober just over a year now. So
really,
yeah. Big change in lifestyle. So that's good.
Do you know what? I wish I had the willpower to do it. I just don't. I really don't.
It's got to be taken, really seriously. And I struggled with it for years. There's just the weekend abuse of it. And it started dawning on me, like, for what reason, and especially having kids now, they do not give a crap if you've got a hangover. And I remember having one of the juiciest hangovers of my life, and my daughter's just like up and ready to play, and I'm like, I don't think I can do this again.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm not the. I really struggle with hangovers. So if I've had a few beers, I mean, look, I only had 2 pints two cans last night, so it wasn't so bad. But like, if I'd have had a skinful, I'd have woke up this morning, I'd have been horrendous.
They never agree with me either. It's not worth it.
Many a meeting I've had to cancel or shift in the morning after a night out with clients.
Excellent.
Jayden, look, let's dive straight in. What we normally do with everybody is just go back to the beginning. So, talk about growing up. What was life like for you with your dad? Was your dad around? What was the relationship like? That sort of thing.
Yeah, awesome. The beginning. Okay, so just to set the scene, we were raised. So myself and my 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings. We were raised in a kind of country town outside of Melbourne, country Victoria, and then we moved closer into the outer suburbs. I thought my life was a typical normal life. Everyone's got that kind of feeling. Both my parents weren't around in the mornings when I was at kind of primary school age. They both got up and left for work. And so I was effectively parented by my eldest, my sister. So I didn't have a lot of that parental guidance in the morning. And when we got home from school, it just wasn't there. We were kids raising each other. And the connection I had with, that's so ingrained in me the relationship with my dad back then was that he'd come home, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and he'd just be berating us for not, having a tidy house and not maintaining, not checking all the chores off the list sort of thing every day. And so there was a lot of fear around that. A lot of fear of when Dad come home, we're all going to get in trouble, and
Right.
yeah, it was. He never really led with physical abuse. There was some occasion of that, but it wasn't like he was a physical abuser. But the psychological abuse, the intimidation, the aggression, the anger, the rage, that was his power. His power was pure intimidation. So that was really, really full on. Definitely ruled the house by fear. Just out of big, 6'2" bloke, big boy, and scary stuff, especially as a little skinny pipsqueak kid like I was. So yeah, that definitely played a big part in just that dynamic of authority and fear. And it wasn't until I started going into high school where you can't tell on camera, I'm actually 6'6", so I grew a lot from the age of 14 to 16, and broadened out a bit. And by the age of probably 16, 17, in my last 2 years of high school, we call it VCE, he wasn't so intimidating anymore. And this dynamic shift started happening, where I started seeing him as a scared man ruling by fear.
Okay.
And that started changing a lot. Cogs in my head started turning around. And I kind of stopped taking his shit a bit and realized that he doesn't know anything. As kids, we have that connection to our parents that, they have to be our gods. They have to be our world, because if they're not, then we're not safe. We have to put our parents on the pedestal. It's just, biological. We've got to do that to feel secure. And that dynamic really started shifting around that age. It's fascinating to reflect on now, for sure.
You mentioned the sort of in primary school. What do you call it? Primary school there.
Primary and high school. Yeah.
The breakfast clubs and after school clubs. Was that typical for your circle of friends, or was it more just yourself?
No, we didn't get to attend any of those things. We're all home alone.
Okay. So when you say your parents were out, you were just at home.
Yeah. So they'd leave for work at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd get up at 7, and we got to walk ourselves to school, and we walk ourselves home from school, and wait until the parents got home. So that was pretty much all of our primary school life. Yeah.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
So eldest sister, she's 14 years older than I am. And then, sorry, my apologies, 7 years older than I am. My brother is 3 years older than I am. And then I've got a younger brother who's 7 years older than I am, younger than I am. Yeah. And a foster brother as well, who's about 10 years younger than I am, I think.
Okay, so big family.
Yeah, big family, for sure.
So I suppose from your parents' perspective, they would have thought your older sister can look after them. She was 7 years older than you, so semi-responsible.
Yeah, the poor bloody girl. What a burden and what a pressure that is on her now. Wow, being forced to be the mother hen. And that's not her personality type at all. She is not the mother hen. It did not bode well.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. So it definitely caused a big shift. In her life as well, and all of our siblings, we all have our own nuanced differences in our experience of the relationship with our dad, and where it all took a really, really big turn was a couple of days actually after my 18th birthday. So I finished school as a 17-year-old, and I turned 18 in March, just after I'd finished my year 12, and there was the discussion of rent come up, like board, we call it board down here, where you get a job now, you've got to start paying board, and my parents asked for money that I thought was too high at the time. Upon reflection now, it's probably fair, but I just kind of threw it back in their face, and I'm like, no, this is not on, this isn't fair. And I said, look, I'll move out. If you guys are going to treat me like this, I'll move out. And they called my bluff, because they said, all right, go. And I'm like, whoa. Well, actually, my mum did. My dad sat back and said nothing. And that's what really hurt me the most. And so I spent the next probably 6 months going between kind of share houses and friends' houses and things like that, until I settled down at a friend's house for the next kind of 2 years after that. And that was huge. That was absolutely huge for me. And that's kind of where it all went downhill really quickly.
Okay. And so it sounds like what you're saying is, at that point, the relationship with both parents wasn't as strong as it probably could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my relationship with my dad was very, because it previously was based on that physical dominance. Like, he had his control over me through physical intimidation, and because I was bigger than him now, that power didn't work on me so much. But what had happened then is my mum had ramped up her trying to control me, and her style of parenting, which was at complete odds with me as well. And what happened there then is that my dad actually shrunk his role in the marriage and in the relationship with me. So he kind of lost all power and become this kind of, in my eyes at the time, like this kind of sniveling, scared little man. Who was letting his wife, my mum, his wife at the time, dominate the situation, and now I can easily see kind of what the dynamic was there with my dad. That he was a man he is a man still today that is completely led by fear, but knew he had this big burly voice and would use these intimidation tactics as a way of masking his insecurities about who he was, for sure. And
did all your siblings have a similar? Actually, I think you said that everyone has a different dynamic or a different understanding of the.
Yeah, all different. My sister, being 7 years older at the time, she had already moved out with her partner then, and my older brother, he's actually going through quite a bit of mental health issues at the moment, with his experiences as a child, and I've had my personal view of it, and my younger brother actually. So about 2 years after I left home is when my parents officially divorced, and my younger brother decided to stay with my dad. So they're all very close, and all of my siblings and I were all still close with dad and newly with my mum as well. So after the divorce, there was a big separation, big divide of all the siblings. And and it's only now that I'm comfortable kind of sharing the story, because I understand how to articulate it, and I've gone through it, and I've healed through it. And it's by bringing the family back together and understanding that it's okay what happened, because everyone was doing the best they could with the tools they had at the time. And that's really that kind of message that I live with, that energizes me is forgiveness. That's the only place that we can be now is to feel fulfilled and whole. It's through forgiveness.
Yeah. I think the forgiveness is important. I think I've just started cycling, trying to get fit. And
awesome.
I listened to quite a lot of podcasts, and I was listening to Joe Rogan's one the other day with, is it David Goggins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Badass.
he talks about, he's crazy. I think he did that pull-up challenge for like 17 hours of doing pull-ups. It was just crazy. But yeah, he talks about how forgiveness is something that will pull you down, and if you don't forgive and forget, it will just dominate you, and you have to move on and to be happy in life. You just have to forgive.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's very easy to say that you forgive until you actually do the work. You go through that dark night of the soul sort of thing. You come out of the other side, and you have that moment that completely changes everything for you, and then you realize what true forgiveness is. Like that's that super powerful thing. It's kind of really hard to explain, but once you've hit it in yourself, you bloody know, and it changes everything. And it's literally like you've just had balls and chains attached to you around your waist, and you've just flung them off, and now you're free, and life is easier. You physically feel lighter.
Yeah, and it's a funny feeling, that, because you can get that in a number of scenarios. I had that with a job that I hated, and I was doing, I did it for 3 years, and at the start, I really liked the job, but for the last year, I got a new boss, and I just couldn't stand going in. But I'd go in because the money was good, and I was doing well. And then we were made. Loads of people were made. I think 150 people were made redundant. And honestly, that day, I was just like, "This is the best thing ever." It was so, and like you say, those shackles were just let go, and. I saw it as an opportunity to go. And I set my own business up after that, and we just completed our first year, so we've done really well, and
awesome.
And it was the best thing that happened. But sometimes you just have to let those chains off, and I always talk to people. I work in recruitment, and we talk to people about a lot about doing a job you hate. And there's a lot of people that do jobs they hate, they can't stand. Are you the kind of person that goes in, that can't wait to go to work on Monday, or are you the person that doesn't want to get up for work, presses the snooze button, doesn't get out of bed? Is that you? Because if that's you, stop. That you don't have to do this job. There are plenty of other opportunities out there, and you need to find something that you love.
Exactly.
Because ultimately, we spend 1/3 of our life at work. So why spend 1/3 of your life wishing it wasn't yours?
Oh, totally right. And you then put that in with your families. Like, how much time do you spend in your day occupied with your families? Is it an hour a day? Is it 2 minutes? Regardless of how long it is, though, that accumulates, right? And is that energy, that time you're spending on your family or that family member, is that positive or negative?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I was realizing. So what happened with me from when I was 18 and I moved out of home and went through all of that. So I'm 32 now. And so it wasn't until I was roughly 30, 31 that the real breakthroughs come through, and the real reconnection with my parents started to happen. Before that, being out of home and then dealing with my parents getting divorced and all that sort of thing, I spiraled into alcohol abuse, drug abuse. I was chasing sex, everything, you name it. Like I was doing all that typical thing, that lost boy thing. I was trying to find my way. I was hanging around guys that were too rough. I was doing the nightclub scene, you name it. I was just trying to find connection with anyone or anything that I could. And now I can see just how hopelessly lost I was. I was trying to find connection with a bunch of other people who were also trying to find connection, and really that connection that I was missing was with myself. And it wasn't until I started doing the internal work that I was able to reconnect with myself, and then in turn be able to truly connect with other people.
Yeah, because that age sort of 18 to 22, those 4 years, and I know been through it myself, very similar to that. Chasing women out every night a week.
Yeah,
working for the weekend. That's, that was life. But there's a very real issue with men and society, because the world we live in, for a guy, that's what, you're a lad about town, you're a lad, you go out, get smashed, pull birds. That's what everybody tells you need to do as a young man. Nobody gives you that guidance to say, actually, you might come to regret some of these decisions in a few years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's and you ask yourself that question, like who's there to guide us, right? Usually it should be the dad, but we've got to ask the question, who guided the dad? Who guided your grandfather? And so on it goes.
I was talking about this, I think the other day with a podcast we were doing, and we were saying about, because you're a similar age to me, so I just turned 36.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably still in I would say my age range at 32. But I think our parents, my dad wasn't about, but, knowing my friends' dads and stuff like that, it was very rare that any of their parents, or dads, sorry, I'm specifically talking about dads here, were that arm around the shoulder, best mate kind of. They were very standoff, we talk here about, the stiff upper lip, as the British way. Dad went to work, went to the pub, was home for dinner. That's, I think, from our dad's generation, 70s, 80s, 90s. I think that's what it was like. Mm-hmm. So, and it's only when our generations come up, and not that we're a little more sensitive, but I think we are more open and we are more connected to people. So our outlook is completely different to our parents. And I think as we grow and as my kids becomes older, then I think it'll become a lot more, I think men will become a lot more amenable. But looking back to the 70s and 80s, it just wasn't a thing that,
exactly right.
Pub, work, slap.
Yeah, and so I guess my story with my dad's a little bit different. I saw exactly what you said there with every single other one of my friends, all of them exactly that same. I actually find myself reflecting on how lucky I am that my dad would, even though he was that fearful, intimidating type, he was actually very different. Whereas he was actually is a really sensitive man. And being that sensitive man, back a generation, he was completely crushed having that sensitive side and forced into being a man. My grandpa is a bloke's bloke, right?
Yeah.
And so were his brothers, they're both tradesmen or security guards, things like that, right? And my dad, he was all about the intellect, super, super intelligent man, wears his heart on his sleeve. And dinner talk around the table with us growing up was actually more along the kind of progressive side, which was really eye-opening for me, because I'm hearing all these conflicting ideas at home as what I'm hearing around in society. But I can see more and more now that my dad, I think, is a generation ahead, and we're kind of facing the same thing that my dad was back then, is that he was being forced to be a man, a typical alpha male, and it didn't feel right for him. Yeah. And so I would be the product of a father who is going through kind of what a lot of society is going through now. And so I think I'm kind of proof of where that conflict or what we could be potentially doing to our kids if we didn't have things like this podcast for people to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I'm confident that things are definitely changing. I think that's
absolutely,
the perception, and I think this one of the take. I was going to say the good things to happen from this pandemic, because there's nothing really that's been great that's come of it. But
it's always a silver lining.
Yeah, I think the silver line. I think you said it right. Is that there's a lot of people. There's a lot more people that are going to need more help. That's one thing. But I think the upside of that is there's more and more people aware that people need help. And I think having more people aware that people aren't okay, and actually it's okay to not be okay, that's the big change. And I think that's the big change we need to see. Because, like I say, I think back to growing up, and if I imagine going to my mate's house or down the pub and say, do you know what, lads, I feel very good today, I'm not feeling myself. They'd be like, shut up, you idiot.
It's so funny how it's not funny. It's kind of traumatic and terribly sad, actually, how that societal pressure does force us to behave in a way that's so out of alignment with who we truly feel we need to be, right?
Yeah.
So again, all of my mates are tradies, right? They are beer guzzling, drug using, tattooed wearing, driving their big trucks, got the dogs, all that sort of stuff. Like, that is who I grew up with, right?
Yeah.
Now, I was the closet nerd in the group. I'm playing Warhammer 40,000, right? I play that by myself, right? I can't tell my friends that I do that. I love playing Nintendo. Get me onto Zelda or whatever, and, I'll read a fantasy book. I love Lord of the Rings, right? I say those words, I utter those words near my friends, and they just tease the crap out of me, right? And so what was happening is I was conditioned to close up about that and deny who I truly was. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that anymore, and I feel so free, and that's taken a couple of years worth of work. But now what I'm starting to realize, or at least wonder, is how many of my friends or just guys in general, right, that lead that pub life, how many of them have their songs unsung? How many of these guys actually are desperate to want to pursue what their heart actually desires? What do they want to take an art class? Do they want to start learning how to sing? Do they want to read fantasy? Do they want to write? Do they want to journal? Do they want to be poets? All these sorts of things that these guys have the potential to be, but they're denying it to themselves out of fear of rejection from the guys at the pub.
100%.
It just seems so sad.
There was do you have the X Factor over there?
Yeah, we have an Aussie X Factor, yeah.
So they did a celebrity version just before, 2019, I think it was. They did a celebrity version because nobody did anything last year. But they did 2019, they did a celebrity version. And there was a boy band, right? I call them a boy band because that's what they are. But they were 3 international rugby union players, like big, burly men. And everyone's react. I mean, they were brilliant. They were really good singers, and they did really well. But everyone's reaction was like, they can't sing. Like the big rugby players, what are they doing? It was just incredible to see. And you look at it, and you think, they look out of place on that competition, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't look out of place.
Right. Yeah.
You should do what you want to do.
Society says, be a man. To be a man, you've got to work hard. You've got to have muscle. You've got to look a certain way. You've got to think a certain way. You've got to drink a certain way. All these sorts of things. It's like, that is just bullcrap. It's absolutely bullcrap. We put on the pedestal this ideal alpha male, and that's who we're supposed to, aspire to be. Yeah. And in doing so, we kill ourselves in that pursuit, and we never achieve it, and we never honour who we're truly supposed to be.
No.
It's so sad.
So Jayden, coming out of a fairly big family, obviously brothers and sisters, was there a big extended family, plenty of cousins?
Oh, there was. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
So coming out of a big family, growing up, did you, obviously going out of that 18, doing your own thing, like you said, living the life, was having a family something that you thought would happen?
It's something I always wanted, for sure. I was definitely that idealistic, hopeless romantic of like, let's get a beautiful family going. Like, I wanted that for sure. That was absolutely. I was definitely the soft kid, who wanted that little nest egg to just be all like cozy and cuddly, and absolutely.
Big family, small family.
Originally,
did you have a number?
Yeah, I originally wanted 3 to 4 kids. We've got 2. We've got a daughter who's 4 and a son who's 1.5. And I think we're done now.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. Like, so I've got one boy, and you know, my missus doesn't want any more kids. That's, I've said that a million times on here. I've moaned about that a million times. She doesn't want any more, but she's like, if you ask her, she said, "I'm done. I've got one. I'm done." And because it's not easy, is it? It's really not easy. And
it's easy for us.
Yeah, my sister is so she's just turned 30, and she's just about to have a kid. She's just about to start a family, and she's like, I want to have 3 all back to back after each other. And I'm like, Hannah, you've not even looked after my boy for one night. You've never looked after a kid, and you think you're just going to knock out 3 and it's going to be dead easy. I'm just so fascinated by people's. It's like expectation versus reality, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and she wants twins as well. I'm like, you're mental.
Hey, if she can pull that off, good on her. That's awesome. Power to
her. So look, you meet when did you meet? So your partner that you're with now?
Yeah, geez, that's a great question. I met her just before my 21st birthday.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've been together 12 years now, and yeah, God, she's been such a guiding light to me. She is just this rock. She is absolutely incredible, and it's like I have slowly but surely, kind of year by year, sorting my shit out and getting in alignment with her.
Yeah.
And now these last 12 months, 18 months has been where we have just connected on a level that I never even thought was possible at all.
Yeah.
For sure.
I can relate to that. I've been with my partner for, get this right, 14 years, I think. 14 years this year. But again, I was very similar to you, that she's always been very level-headed, straight-laced, and whereas I've always been a bit of an idiot, and it's taken me a few years to get, like I say, on the same trajectory. Yeah. And I'm sort of thankful to her that she's sort of stuck around as she has, because I haven't been easy. But
yeah, it's funny how much she's grounded me in a way that now I realize that I'd actually needed from my dad. I needed that consistent person to look up to, who, no matter what I did, their behavior didn't waver, and then I could reflect on them in my low times and go, that's the person I need to aspire to. Yeah. Right? And so that's what my wife has been for me, is that constant, north to always keep pointing back to it, and eventually I'm hitting it more and more constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you openly said that you wanted to have kids. You wanted a couple of kids.
That was really important straight off the bat.
And you obviously got with her fairly young, so 21 is still. Is she a similar age to you?
So she's 2 years behind me.
Okay, so when do you start having the conversation about kids? Because obviously you didn't have them till quite a way into that relationship.
Yeah, so my years will probably be off a little bit, but I think I got married when I was 27.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably 7 years. And we had a daughter 9 months after our wedding. Don't know how that worked, but yeah, I wonder. So but the conversation about kids was pretty soon, and that was really just to. I'm always a very open and honest person, and very direct. Like I knew that if I was going to invest my time in this incredible woman, that she had to be in alignment with what I wanted.
Yeah.
Or else, it just wasn't going to work. And luckily for me, we pretty much lined up with everything the whole time. Yeah. So it's been fantastic.
Do you remember the proposal?
I remember the proposal very well. It was a Christmas morning.
Sorry, one second.
That's all right. There should be no dead air. It's nice and quiet. Sorry, I should have just kept talking random things.
See, that doesn't happen in the evening.
All good, all good.
The delivery driver doesn't come in the evening.
So the proposal was it was a Christmas day. I've always been pretty terrible with thinking of like Christmas gifts, and I just thought, this year, what a great way to get out of kind of getting many Christmas gifts by just arranging a proposal, and that
possible.
Ta-da! So yeah, that worked out pretty well. So yeah, did the old hand on knee on the floor sort of typical thing, and yeah, it was good.
Well, I'm always amazed that I asked some of my friends that. How did you do it? But, I don't really remember.
Yeah, I'm not the big romantic. Like I have the romantic kind of ideations, but not necessarily the actions. Like I'm not that sort of kind of wine and dine, take out to restaurants. That is not me at all. I feel like that's just totally forced. Yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, well, I did the old down on one knee in a restaurant.
So much. Yeah, definitely not my style whatsoever. And fortunately not my wife's either, so it's good.
Look, so moving forward to the first baby, how did your then wife tell you that she was pregnant?
That was awesome. That was I'll never forget it. That was a Saturday. I was at work in the office, and I get a text message where we. So she was having morning sickness, right? And we're like, really, this early? Do you think? All right, go get tested, and I'll be at work on Saturday, and you let me know how you go. And yeah, that message was boom. I can't remember the exact words. Something about you're going to be a daddy, and I just burst into tears. It was the best. It's awesome.
You was in work.
Yeah. I ducked into the printer room and pulled my eyes out, gave her a quick call, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and did you feel? I presume you were trying at that point then. We honestly, we tried, and we knew really quickly. It was like in the first 3 weeks of conception that she started showing signs. So we knew really, really early. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously you get the news you're going to be a dad. Obviously you have that excitement that's what you want. But then does sort of reality of what's about to happen set in, or was it all bliss? Because I know I speak to some guys and they have that, and then it's like, shit.
Yeah, so I was super excited. I'm a hands-on dude. I love it. That sort of stuff super excites me. What I realize now upon looking back at my time is that I was super enthusiastic about it, but what I ended up doing actually was letting my wife do all the planning, all the preparation, and I just sat back. So even though I was super enthusiastic about it happening, from conception to arrival, I actually did very, very, very little, to my shame, to be honest. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if that was just a male thing in general. I think that it potentially just a personal thing for me, which is something I've started to unpack with myself as a coach. So I'm a life coach, by the way, and I get coaching as I'm doing it. And so something I've just started learning is that I've been good at, or I've had a habit of shirking responsibilities. And those shirkings of responsibilities was purely due to the fact that I was afraid of trying something or learning something and failing at it. So what way to protect yourself is by not trying or not investing time. Yeah.
Yeah. And because over here they have sort of antenatal classes on the NHS. Is there like a similar thing over there for you guys?
They do have that. They offer all that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, wing it. Hannah, my wife, I'm just like, if you need to tell me anything, just let me know. Otherwise, we're good on the day.
So did she go and you didn't?
No, she didn't end up going because we've got Google. That's fine. Yep. Lots of YouTube videos and lots of research and we're avid researchers we are in our household. So if we want to learn something, we'll pretty much just learn it our way.
And were friends and family having children before you? So were you sort of first in your group?
First in the group, first in the group.
Okay, so you really have nobody, obviously, other than Google, to ask for support or help.
Yeah, exactly right. And we were really close with my wife's family, so really, really close during all that time. So that helped a lot. And during this time, I wasn't so close with my family yet, so there wasn't a lot of support from that side. I wasn't seeking it. Not that there wasn't there to give. It was. I just wasn't ready to seek it at that time. So we had a lot of support from my wife's side of the family.
Okay, and the pregnancy, how was that? Was it smooth sailing, or were there any
For her, it was horrible. It was my wife actually got a pretty serious multiple sclerosis scare during it, where she was admitted in hospital for a few weeks, where she just lost all of the right side of her body, and so that was pretty full on. She got a thing called drop foot, where she just can't, like one of her feet just wouldn't lift, and so she was constantly falling over, which was then dangerous for our baby. So that was pretty serious. But that all just righted itself within a few months before birth. So wasn't smooth sailing. A lot of stress involved on that side. And
do you remember the day of the birth?
Yeah, I was there. Helped catch our daughter.
Awesome. Where were you when was you together when you got the call, or but were having it, or
so I had planned to take annual leave off for work, around X day, and it worked out really well. My leave started on that Wednesday, and it all started that Friday night, and we had a 55-hour kind of pre-labor and labor, and I think from that Friday night until the wee hours of Monday morning when a daughter was born, I think I got about 2.5 hours of sleep. So that was good.
55 hours. Do you know, I did one of the vlogs, I call it, like Getting Down with the Kids, video blog, I call it.
Yeah.
I talk about how, some of the things you need to get used to being a new dad, and one of them is I was saying, look, just get the labour, it's long. Like it's a whole day, sometimes two, but for you, it was even going into the third.
Oh, it was mental. And I'm looking at my wife, and she's just like pumped full of like adrenaline, and she's just like fine, and I'm like just passing out. Like, how are you doing this? It's good.
Take a bit of that gas and air.
Yeah. Oh, she was smashing that thing flat out.
That is funny. The best. I broke my leg a couple of times, and I had that. Oh my God, it's brilliant.
It was good, and straight from then on, it was. I realised now that I was continually taking a back seat in my role as a dad. For sure, I was letting my wife do all the thing, I was just more so the one that was keep looking after my wife. Like that was my focus there, was making sure she was okay. Again, there's not a lot that dad can do with the baby specifically, but definitely know that I could have alleviated a lot of my wife's stress if I chipped in more. So if ever I could give any advice to some new to be dads, is bloody get involved, because your wife needs your support, or your partner needs your support so much.
Yeah. And what's paternity leave like over there for dads?
So I'm with a very large company, one of the bigger energy companies in Australia, and they do the maximum, so 12 weeks.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Full pay for dads.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so good. I mean,
3 months I got to take.
It's 2 weeks here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm incredibly fortunate. So you get to take that any time within the first 2 years of your child being born. So I took mine probably after the first 6 months.
Yeah,
I took mine and had essentially 3 months off work.
I mean, that it is good. I'd also argue it's probably not even enough. You know, there's a myth, isn't it? That well, I say it's a myth, but is that the first few months are the most important time for the mother and child to bond. That's the narrative that you peddled. But what about the dad? When is it time for dad to bond as well? And it is also in that time. It's those first few months. You need that time to be able to connect and bond with your child. And I heard so many stories from dads where they'll say, I had one guy on the podcast where he said the first 3 or 4 months he just couldn't connect with the child. He saw the child as a burden, and change to his life. And maybe that comes down to actually not getting to spend any time with his child, because you get 2 weeks and then you're going straight back to work.
Yeah, well, definitely for so many people, again, and it's that conditioning, right? Men are supposed to work, right?
Yeah.
So then if society supports only, a measly 2 weeks off, then you're back to work. So it's like you're forced into that stereotypical role that you innately doesn't feel right to you, but it's forced upon you. And so you just have to go through the motions. And it's almost forcing disconnection from our children.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And that I feel so grateful to be working for such a company that actually happily does the maximum we're allowed to in Australia. And they even have options to double that for half pay and so on. So it's incredible.
See, here they think they're being progressive by offering shared parental leave. So, your wife will get 9 months off. I think she can take maximum of 12. Actually, I think the first 9 you get a certain amount paid, and then you can take the rest off unpaid. But they have shared parental leave, so you could each take 6 months. But there's no man I know that was ever going to take 6 months off his wife to say, you go back to work now, I'm going to stay at home with the kid. It's just never going to happen.
Yeah,
so
unless you have the corporate mum who wants to do that, and that's great. But then there's that separation. Yeah. Where you're not bonding as a trio.
It's the opposite way, isn't it? Then it's the mum that's being left out. I think there's one country that get this right. I've done a bit of reading on this, and for me, Finland are the only country in the world that have this spot on. So they have every parent gets 7 months paid leave because they ran this campaign a couple of years ago called Daddy Time, and the PR and the media was all around dad in a stereotype of a man, with a hard hat, with high vis vest, pants pulled around his builder's arse, that sort of thing, pushing a pram. And it was this whole thing of daddy time. And actually, Finland is one of the only countries in the civilized world is the wrong word, but like modern
Western civilization.
One of the Western civilizations that fathers, on average, spend more time with their children than mothers. And it was all around this whole. It's only 7 minutes. It's not like loads more time. But it was. They ran this whole campaign, and what they realised is that dads are just as important as mum, and especially in those first months with bonding with the children. that's where it all happens, that bonding time in those first few months. And they realise that, and that it's 7 months shared parental leave you can take. And they've also done it. So if it's a single mother or a single father, they get both 7 months. They get 14 months paid leave.
God, that's good. That's good. And that's just facilitating connection.
Yeah.
And that's what our kids need. You know, the amount of content that I listen to about Dr. Gabor Mate, if you've heard of him, he's absolutely incredible. You know, he's got a book, Hold On to Your Kids, and things like this, where he talks about that human connection with the children, what children need, how to get, you know, the stress that children have, and how we should be as parents and really connect. It's so important. And ever since, so just to quickly kind of give a bit of context as to kind of how I got from there to here, is my daughter actually, when she was just probably 1.5, one morning she woke up and she couldn't put weight on her legs. And 24 hours later, she was on an operating table getting parts of her skull removed to relieve swelling on her brain. Now, if you were to look at me pre that situation, I was this guy who was the smart ass, the one who thought he knew it all, had everything in control, and would use my intellect to tell myself or make myself feel like I was in control, or everyone else was less than me. Kind of, that's that toxic, judgmental persona I took on to make myself feel safe. And that moment in the hospital, when that was happening with my daughter, it was that moment I realized that, one, I knew absolutely nothing about what was happening at that moment. And two, I had zero control. So the guy who thought he knew everything and controlled everything to make sure that, you know, nothing went wrong, in my eyes, all my power was gone. And it was that moment that really started this kind of snowball effect of me going, what have I been doing with my life? Because it's all just come undone in front of me. This illusion has just fallen. And, you know, after the surgery, she was in a coma for 2 weeks. And after that, when they started waking her up, she was unresponsive, and you know, we got sat down from the doctors, and they said, be prepared for cerebral palsy, full, pretty much retardation, full, you know, 24/7 care for the rest of her life. Your daughter will be in a wheelchair. You will need to spoon feed her, bathe her, you know, wash her, everything. Like, this is it. This is what you need to get used to. And my wife and I just looked at each other and were like, no, that's not our daughter's fate. It's absolutely not our daughter's fate. And so what both my wife and I, what we did was actually go down the path that most resonated to us individually, but would both help our daughter. So my wife went down the health side, so all about right foods and brain health and things like that. And I went down the kind of human behavior psychology side, about how the brain works, how people think. Because what was really really important to me is to be able to communicate to my daughter when we knew she was going to start getting better. And so that's what led us down that path. And so the recovery of our daughter, because of, and I wholeheartedly believe it's because of what me and my wife did, is that she is nearly at a complete full recovery 3 years later. So, you know, it was just over 2 months after her surgery that when we were told that she was going to be, you know, wheelchair bound for life, that she walked out of hospital on very shaky legs. And that, that's been the journey ever since. And so, you know, she's been recovering, and we've been working with her therapy and things like that. And this whole time, my wife and I are on this quest to understand the human body in every way we possibly can. And that's why understanding human behavior and understanding the the tribal cycles that we have as adults that are handed down from our parents, and so on and so on. I wanted to know what happened to me and why I had the disconnection with my parents and my father, and think, okay, well, I'm a father to my daughter. So what can I do to avoid the situation that I was experiencing with my dad at the time and for the previous years? And so this is where I started really, really taking note and looking into all these people that knew more about it, psychologists, therapists, counselors, coaches, all this sort of thing. What are these people saying? What are these people saying about children, about connection, about how to communicate with our kids? And so this is what we have done as a family, is become so conscious in our parenting, so conscious in ourselves, becoming aware of who we are and knowing that we can't be the best parents if we're not the best people ourselves. And so knowing that if the focus isn't on our child, we're not there to fix our daughter. We're actually here to fix ourselves. And in doing so, our daughter will be healed as a result. That is absolutely what we believe in. And that is, I mean, the results are speaking for ourselves, for itself. You'd look at our daughter right now and you wouldn't think there's anything wrong with her. And the doctors are just absolutely gobsmacked every time they see her. They're just like, how? They cannot explain her recovery.
Jayden, because obviously I imagine for a lot of parents that aren't as strong-willed as obviously you pair are or were at that point, that could be crippling news and, could be filled with anxiety and could really send people on a real downward trajectory. But for you guys, it did the opposite. It sent you on a path of discovery. If and I'm not necessarily talking about if they're in a situation with their children, but if you've got guys, maybe watching this thinking, I need to change. I need to become a better person. Where do you recommend they start that discovery for themselves?
Yeah, so the most important thing to realize is that humans as a whole, we are more likely to move away from pain than we are to move towards pleasure. And so that is just a fact of nature of the human condition. And so what we need to start exploring is, what pain am I going to incur if I stay the same? So, if let's just use the example of I am an alcoholic, right? I can continue being safe as an alcoholic because that's my realm of comfort right now. It's my safe zone, even though it's painful. It's what I know and it's safe. Anything outside of that bubble is unknown and is therefore painful and is therefore something that we're not likely to explore. So what we need to do is start reflecting and go, okay, if I stay the same, what is going to happen in 3 months? What's going to happen in a year, 3 years, 10 years? What's my life going to be? Right? Really, really look down and go, what will happen to my life and those around me if I do not change? And you start stacking all those painful thoughts that are going to start coming up as a result of not changing. And those will absolutely outweigh your fear of changing in the moment, because you'll be so terrified of what will happen down the track if you don't, that there's no option but to change.
Just what you were saying there actually got me thinking about somebody else. But what advice would you give to somebody who a close friend or a family member is addiction or alcoholism, drugs or whatever, and they can't see that they need to change, but everybody around them can see it? What advice can you give to somebody to try and help them to see that light?
So I wouldn't necessarily give them advice. I'd actually ask them how they're going. So it's about understanding where that addiction comes from, where that behavior comes from.
Yeah.
So an addiction is just a cover up to avoid pain. So we as humans don't do anything that doesn't serve us, even though it sounds, from the outside, well, how could an addiction to gambling or whatever be a good thing? But to that person, that's helping them. That's helping them in some way. So it's what are they hiding from? What are they trying to protect themselves from? Where is that pain? Right? That pain can be numbed by any vice: alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, you name it. So it's what is that pain that's being masked? That's what we need to explore. That's it. And so it's all about talking to your friends or whoever's close by that is suffering and finding out, really talking to them. Because if you want to just give someone advice, they're not going to listen, right? Because they don't understand what's behind it. So they need to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, because the big problem with addicts is they don't know they're an addict. Well, some will understand that, but a lot of them, and I'm thinking of someone in particular here that will not understand that they have a problem. And you can talk to them about it, and they'll be like, "No, it's not an issue." But from the outside, you can all see that there's clearly something that needs addressing. But it's how you take that step. Do you know one of the frustrating things for me about help? And I don't know if it's the same over there. It probably is. We're very similar. But so let's say it's my friend who's got an addiction problem. If I want to refer him to the hospital or the doctor, and I say, look, this guy is going to seriously harm himself if he doesn't get help. Somebody needs to speak to him or do whatever. There's nothing they can do. The referral has to come from the person. And I just find that incredible because, like I've just said, you're talking about people that don't recognise they have an issue. So how do the self-referral system for me just doesn't work? You've got friends, you've got family, your wife, your mum, your dad, all know that there's a problem. Yet there is absolutely nothing that they can do to help people, and I just find that incredible. Is that the same there? Is it referral?
Yeah, look, I'm not overly familiar with it, but it does sound like it's similar from what I hear from other people. I haven't been involved in that system specifically, but it does sound about right.
I just find that amazing.
Well, I mean, what can you do? You can call up the cops and get them to, pull someone in against their will for something they haven't broken the law necessarily.
Back in the day, you'd have been sectioned. Take him away.
It's that really tricky thing. And, what can we do as a society? Well, what can we do is actually normalize conversations like this.
Yeah.
Right? So that there is no stigma behind admitting that there's a problem or at least starting that conversation that would allow people to identify in themselves that, there is actually something that I'm doing here that isn't productive. Promoting self-inquiry is super important.
Yeah. And there's that, as much as there's a stigma around mental health, there's a similar thing around drugs and the way that the drug laws are applied. I was reading this report about, I think it was Norway. Norway had a real problem with heroin. Loads of people were dying, lots of crime due to addicts needing to rob and steal to make money. So what they actually did was they made it legal. So they said, well, we're going to make it legal. You can come to government facilities and you can have as much heroin as you need, but you have it here. And whilst you're here, we're going to talk to you about why you're taking this. What's the problem? What is that is masking? And you wouldn't be surprised to know that Norway's heroin problem just went straight down because actually they took away that stigma of it being, it took away from it being illegal, and they needing to. So crime drops because these people aren't stealing to fund their habit, but they're also getting help to deal with the problems that is causing them to have have this.
Yeah, and they're not being pushed to the fringes of society. They're being welcomed back and accepted. They're getting the connection, which really is most likely what most of them are craving in the heroin. They're craving connection. They're craving that loving warmth, that dopamine hit you get when you hug someone that you love. That's what the heroin's giving them.
Yeah. And I'm not saying legalize heroin. that's not what I'm saying. But I think the way that that people treat drug users as criminals, I just think that's wrong.
I totally agree. Rehabilitation is absolutely the way to go, because again, rehabilitation shows that there's understanding and there's compassion behind it, knowing that there's a human being underneath all that pain. That pain has conditioned that person to behave in a way that is against society's norms, right? So we need to understand where that gap was, and you damn well know that gap's going to start at the home, more likely than not.
But it's also why are they deciding that some drugs are fine and some drugs aren't? Alcohol and tobacco are just as bad as cannabis is an example, because obviously cannabis.
We could get down the filthiest rabbit hole on that topic. It's the government, man.
Let's get back to being a dad.
Absolutely.
So obviously, you're obviously going through at that period with your first child, and you've obviously gone through the self-discovery and understanding of the body, and like you say, you've not come through it, but you've definitely come to a place that is where the doctors were predicting you would get to, and you've gone on a completely different trajectory.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, she's almost, at this rate, I can't say anything, as in like I'm not a doctor, right? But at this rate that we're going, it could be 2 years and she's made almost an equivalent full recovery, at the rate we're going. It's incredible. And you know what the best thing about all this is? So many times I hear people say like, oh, I'm so sorry for you, or things like that. And I think, no, absolutely not. This has been the greatest thing that could have happened to our family. Yeah. Because it has forced us to dig deep and learn and grow. And we have come so close as a family because of this, that our lives has been better in every way, shape and form ever since that fateful day. It's something I would never change, ever.
It's about finding that opportunity. There's opportunity in everything, and it's just being able to look for it and find for it. And the self-discovery part of that is obviously important, because you need to let go of that negative. Without letting go of the negativity, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, 100%. And it was this journey that I needed that I was powered by trying to save my daughter was where I actually saved myself. And in that self-inquiry is where I learned to let everything go, and I learned to forgive. Yeah. And if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be in this beautiful spot mentally that I am now with my family. We're all connected again. We're all beautiful. There's no hard feelings. There's nothing. But I do not have an ill will to anyone on the planet. And this is coming from someone who would judge everyone all day, every day, right? Yeah. And it's completely turned around. I've had my awakening moments, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it come from, it's a really serious trauma to happen. But it's, I had to ask myself, like, what was I going to do in that situation? Was I going to go through it, or was I going to grow through it? Yeah. And I chose to grow.
I'm the same. The last blog that I wrote was called "Be the Change You Wish to See in the World," and I start that by saying, I went into 2020 with cynicism and contempt for everyone. That was me. I was very much, I'm the center. You're the center of your own world, and nothing matters. It's just you. And I sort of left 2020 with actually my mind had been completely flipped, and trying to help other people. And that's, it was that from the start of the year to the end of the year, I found myself being a completely different and a very different outlook on life and how you react to other people and treat other. And I'm similar to you, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I've got no ill will to anybody.
It's such a good feeling, and I tell this to some people.
It's a great place to be. It is a great
people can't understand it though. they really, really can't get it. And I'm like, no, it's really like, I love everyone. It's awesome. You could pick the worst person in the world, and I could tell you, no, I love them, because I don't see what they've done. I see who they are. I see that innocent child when they were born. I see that beautiful soul that's inside them. Like they're all potential. And if anyone's done anyone harm, it's because of the circumstances they were in. And we just need to help guide them back onto a path that serves.
Yeah. So the gap between your two kids, what are they?
Yeah, about 2.5 years, give or take.
And the second one, was that planned again, or not planned?
It was planned. It was just probably a year early.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, about a year early. So, yeah, that was a bit of a rush job, but it's good.
How did you find out about that one?
Very similar way, actually. It wasn't much different at all.
Right.
Yeah, super early. Just like, hey, buddy, he's going to turn the light off on me. It wasn't much different. Just a pretty cruisy one, and no MS scare during the second pregnancy, which was great. So it all went along swimmingly. So
the MS is so my mum died of MS 3 years ago, and it's I've seen that. That's just a horrible disease.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun at all.
No. So people are getting two more, but let's move away from that one. Both of your kids, were you parents that wanted to find out, or did you leave it till the day for the surprise?
We wanted to find out.
Yeah.
I definitely did, and I convinced my wife that she wanted to as well. So
yeah. I just don't understand. I do not. So my wife, Carly, her friend, they're actually having a baby shower tonight, a virtual one actually, because obviously we're still in lockdown, you guys aren't. But that's their first child, and they've waited to find out the sex of and I'm like, how have you done that? Like, I just, how do you decide what you're putting in the bedroom? How do you decide what clothes you're buying? Yeah, I'm so impatient. We actually paid to have an early test.
Yeah,
I think you find out 17 weeks. I think you find out, but I think you can pay to have a scan at 12 or 13. I think. So we like, tell me early. Tell me now.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't have waited. Credit to those who can, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, Jayden, look, wrapping up, because I know we've gone over a little bit here, but
that has gone quick.
Yeah. Hopes for the future. Do you think you'll have any more children, or are you done now?
Look, I don't think I will. I don't think we will. And the reason for that is that we're spending so much time on ourselves and on our kids right now, and we've got a lot going on that I would be genuinely concerned that if we did have another one, that the time and the great value quality time that we're spending with our kids now and ourselves would be spread just that bit too thin. Yeah. And so I don't feel personally that I would be right to have another kid and give them all the attention that they need. Not to say it's not possible. But I'm not ready for that right now. No. And I don't think it would be fair on the kid either, all my current kids. So.
I'd love another one. My wife's giving me daggers in the background because she doesn't want
Good luck.
Yeah, I think if I slag her off enough on here about not having it, maybe she'll give me one. No,
social pressure works every time.
I would have one more. I think just one. I'd like a little girl.
Yeah.
Now, a boy. But a little bit more convincing to do on my end.
Yeah, best of luck on that one, mate. As I said, you're not the one with the ovaries, so there you go.
No, I'd adopt though as well. My mum was adopted as a kid, so that's always something I've always said I would like to do. But again, it's just convincing the boss.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've got a younger brother, adopted younger brother as well. So yeah, I love it. I think it's such a good way to give back to the community and to really save a life. So it's fantastic.
100%. Yeah. Well, listen, Jayden, brilliant speaking to you. You're probably going to bed now, right?
Yeah, it's 9:15 now. Yeah.
9, okay. Yeah.
So I still get up at 5 every day. So yeah.
It was you that was telling me about the 3 M's. So that's something that I'm trying to incorporate: movement, meditation, and mantra.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm trying to do it. I'm just not great at consistently doing it. But when you do work out in the morning, I just feel so much better for the rest of the day.
So much better. Absolutely. Yeah, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man, this has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate your time and what you're doing here is fantastic. To be able to get the average Joe on here, have a chat, have a bit of banter and just get to have these conversations, and for other people to be able to hear this, I think what a beautiful time that we live in, that we can share our stories and normalize this sort of conversation. And if this inspires other people to have these conversations and create that space for self-inquiry, how incredible is this? I think we're just so fortunate, and what you're doing is brilliant. And I really appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, like I say, we're in a time when we're so connected. I mean, you're literally in Australia now, and I'm saying, 20, 30 years ago, that I'd probably been, one of you.
Very cool.
Yeah, but technology's moved on so much, and we should just use it, right? So let's just
absolutely
embrace it.
Spread the love.
That's it. Listen, Jayden, it's been great speaking to you, and we're connected on socials now, so I'm sure we'll speak again.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Great time.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.